Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott MacKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, welcome to Industrial Talk. Thank you very much for your continued support. My name is Scott MacKenzie, and I'm here to celebrate you industry professionals all around the world. You are doing incredible work. You are solving problems. You are making the world a better place. It is an exciting time, and I'm telling you, an exciting time to be in industry. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for just being who you are. All right, we're going to be talking to IRISS. IRISS is an organization, a company that is focused on safety, but from an asset management perspective in the electrical world. You know, you're looking at these electrical assets, you think that they're static. Nope, they move around, they do everything, and they're just every bit as important as all of the other spinning equipment that you have out there to manage. IRISS has a vertically integrated solution. They're a one-stop shop. You need to begin, looking at those assets. Let's get cracking. Mark Paul is his name. IRISS is the company. Yeah. As a former journeyman transmission lineman, I always geek out on anything that deals with electricity and power and all that good stuff. And what they do at IRISS is wonderful, because you don't get to make many mistakes in the world of power. You make one mistake, you're not thinking it through or whatever. It can bite pretty hard. So what IRISS brings to the table, whatever their multiple solutions that they have, is truly a focus on safety, electrical safety, asset management of those electrical assets, being able to truly dig in from a safe perspective, what to do, where to go, how to just ensure that the health of those assets are where they need to be. Now, or they need to have some sort of corrective action, but all of the tools that are being provided by IRISS, a must have. And then, of course, they have a bench full of incredible individuals that definitely know what to do. So it's a beautiful thing, and it's a must connection. Mark Paul is his name. You're going to have all that contact information out there on Industrial Talk. So his LinkedIn stat card is chock full of information about who he is, and you can tell that he brings a lot of street cred. Now, we're going to have probably some additional conversations with a lot of the solutions that they have, because we just sort of scratched the surface. It really is it's a pencil and paper conversation that you must bottom line, you need to connect with this individual and connect with IRISS in a big way. It's a lengthy conversation, so let's sort of make this intro short. So IRISS is the company. Mark Paul is the individual. Let's get cracking. Mark, welcome to Industrial Talk. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent, Scott. Thank you for having me on here. It's good to be a part of this.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation in a big way.
Good.
As I mentioned offline, I am a big and rabid fan of anything that's around asset management, reliability, maintenance, things like that. But what makes IRISS a unique business, I think you focus in a lot on safety too as well, and electrical safety. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. But before we get in chirping about that, we need to know who Mark is. Give us a little background on who Mark is.
Scott, I am a recovering engineer. I was educated as electrical engineer, and in that space, I did a lot with automotive manufacturing, controls engineers, really where I got my start. And I learned really from the ground up, the real issues that occur in manufacturing and large production facilities. And I took that information and did some great things with it while I was at that company. I won't say the name of the automotive manufacturer, but the initials were GM. And yeah, you like that one? Yes. Keeps me safe, right?
Yes.
And so I left GM and went to work for a large supplier with the initials of GE, and that that
Another
taught me a
one.
lot of great things as well, right? I mean, it was another massive company, big direction of how to do business and on large scales. Siemens Corporation was my next step after that, and then I said, there's got to be a way to get on the other side of this. How can I become involved as an entrepreneur? How do I get involved as a business owner, and really start on the small side of business and work my way back up? And that's really been my journey for the past 25 years of being self-employed and working in different industries and backgrounds. And then I got the opportunity to come work at IRISS and bring really these quarter of a decade of a quarter of a century of knowledge of small business, medium-sized business, and large business, and bring that back and do what I love to do, which is really help people succeed in whatever area of life that they're involved in, whether it's business, on the personal side of things, whatever. And this gives me that opportunity to bring all those years and put it into practice.
Yeah, I went out to your stat card, your LinkedIn stat card, and
Sorry.
it's chock full of history. You've done a lot, so you bring the street cred to the table. I really like that a lot, and my background has been in the electrical space, primarily utilities. So I was a transmission journeyman, lineman, climbing towers. So I have a I have a passion for anything electrical. I
Nice.
mean, I that train left the station many years ago, so there's a lot of new stuff out there. Take us through briefly just the history of IRISS, if you can, and where it has evolved, so that we can start talking about some of the devices that help businesses, well, be safe and succeed.
Yeah, the story of IRISS is awesome, and I love telling it because it's really that rags to riches story that everybody just loves to hear about. And this is no exception to that rule. This was a company started by Martin and Deborah Robinson over in the UK, and it was one of those things where Martin was one of those individuals that just would not be stopped. He always wanted to have that drive, that passion to do something and do it well. And so he was in the British Navy, and then when he got out, he had some skills that he had gathered while he was there, and put that into play to help provide for his family. It's the how do I make a living? How do I feed my kids? Really is how the company got into its initial days, and so Martin and Deborah really started this out of their garage. The classic, everything that gets done is either done by yourself or it doesn't get done at all. And they grew that from literally a garage-based company into this global leader in safety and reliability that it is today. And after the start in the UK, they realized that the market that this was very specifically geared toward was growing the fastest, and understood the need for safety and reliability in a bigger way in the United States. And so they moved not only their company, but they moved their entire family over here to Florida, which is where the headquarters is today. And then they, began selling and creating this amazing brand. And that is really what they did. They created a brand with a reputation that's, unmatched, not only now in the US, but literally around the world. And we have offices today. Not only our headquarters here in Florida, but we also have offices in Qatar. We have an office in India. We have locations all over the world. We have people in the UK and Europe and Latin America supporting our customer base, and it's that success story that everybody wants to achieve. Very few do, and it's really been driven. And to this day, Martin, the CEO, is a working CEO. He's actively involved daily in helping this business take it to the next level.
Okay, a couple of questions. One, what is the specific market that IRISS focuses on?
Yes.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Great.
It's nothing. We're not out of any market, right? I mean, this is one of those things where if somebody uses electricity, they need us. It's literally that broad and that applicable to everybody.
Yeah, you could definitely manufacturing, oil and gas. It doesn't really matter, but it's um, the solution that Martin and company put together was the ability to be able to assess the the health of that electric asset. Correct?
That is really, at the core of what we do. We are a company that provides indicators or the ability to inspect electrical assets. And that can be anything from large substations all the way down to your charger for your cell phone. That's why when you asked, what industry, it's there, it's unlimited. Every household has electrical devices in it.
I have to ask the question. What I have a cell phone and I have a charger. What am I have to be worried about?
That's a great question, right? And so
Yeah.
we have all these things, even in our daily lives, that could potentially cause a fire. They could cause some kind of electrical problem, and electrical problems can have drastic and severe consequences. And so your charging device for your phone or any of our 90 million different widgets we have around the house today, those little chargers, some of them we buy at the gas station because we lost our one that came with the device, and so we buy these little cheap ones. And even the ones that come with devices sometimes are made really inexpensively, and they can overheat. If they overheat, they can cause a fire. Fires can create massive damage.
So do you have what? Do you have a homeowner's version of your device? Because I think that the industrial brand would be a little bit overkill for those devices.
Yeah, I don't think it needs an infrared window, but you know what it does need? It's called a Safe Connect spot. And this little sticker that you put on a device can indicate if it's gotten too warm. And the temperature, the indicator on that little sticker, when it changes from pink to red, that says, hey, at some point this thing got too hot and you should throw it away. It's not safe.
Wow.
Cool,
See?
huh?
Look at that, man. That is cool. I didn't know that. Now my head is swimming with options and thinking, now what do I have out there in the house? Oh my
Exactly,
goodness.
right?
Oh my goodness. Live a paranoid life in my house now. Yeah.
You
All
were
right.
before?
Yeah. No, I wasn't. Just merely going about my business.
There you go. Well, I'm glad to have brought the fear of
Yeah.
what could happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, there's been how many years has IRISS been in business?
It's been over 30 years now.
Yeah, see? So there's been a lot of changes. What fascinated me about this, your form that you filled out, by the way, anybody that wants to be on this podcast needs to fill out a form, and he filled it out, and he was very good at it. You can tell he was a former engineer. Your form is extensive. But anyway, what did jump out was that here's IRISS. Now all of a sudden, I'm seeing a trend into the device business where you're providing devices, not only the ability to be able to look at your electrical assets, but to then be able to sort of determine the health of those assets as well with these devices. Take us through that journey.
So, Scott, you actually worded it very well. You said the health of our assets. And so what that really means is we have all these devices that are, and let's talk, large industrial, heavy manufacturing. There's a lot of power consumption. And just in North America alone, loose connections, so wires, bus bar, whatever's connected, if those connections are somewhat loose, then it creates energy or electrical loss, and that electrical loss is in the form of heat, is usually what is generated from that electrical loss through a loose connection. Just loose connections alone in North America yearly cost businesses about $20 billion.
No way.
Annually, just loose connections.
No way.
Yeah, massive amounts of money just thrown
huge.
down the toilet because of a bad connection. How do we know they're loose? Well, if someone's got an amazing maintenance program, they shut everything down, they go through, and I won't say an amazing maintenance program because this is actually not the right way to do it, but some companies actually go in and they tighten down the lugs, they tighten down all the connections just in case there's things that have worked themselves loose, which happens because manufacturing, there's a lot of vibration. There's things that happen over time where connections loosen up. The real issue is if you just go through and randomly tighten things, you're gonna inject potential failures as well. Because if something's not broken and then you try to fix it,
Exactly.
right? And so let's do something so we don't have to just randomly see if a connection is loose. So what's the solution? How do we do that? That's really where our thermochromics line come into play. Thermochromics are just ways of sensing temperature at an unsafe range. And so you can put these devices onto a conductor, onto a bus bar, onto any surface, and it detects temperature. And the cool thing about thermochromics, there's some really, it's not a new technology even. It's something that's been around for years. I'll guess that we're probably not too far off age-wise. You remember something called the mood ring?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right? There were cool things back in the 70s where you put this little ring on, and based on how much heat your body's generating, it would change colors. And, theoretically, you could say, oh, he or she's in a good mood or bad mood or happy, whatever.
Right.
So that was a thermochromic. It was a way of detecting temperature change. And then in the 80s, there was a cool company out there called Hypercolor. They made T-shirts that were dyed with thermochromic dyes, and so you could put your hand on this T-shirt and take your hand away. Do you remember those? Did you ever see those? Yeah,
No.
I had
Well,
I had
pretty
two of
doggone
these
cool.
shirts. They were super cool.
Yeah.
So you could put your hand on a T-shirt, or if you were sweating, around your arms, that would be a different color than the rest of the T-shirt. They were kind of cool, unless you sweat a lot. That was probably not a good indication, right?
You're
But
right.
so there's 80s, and then you go through, I don't know when it came out. Let's call it late 90s. It was time for Thanksgiving, and you buy a turkey. People used to have those metal thermometers they'd stick in the turkey to see if the internal temperature was hot enough. Then what they do, they created something that was rather foolproof. They put in this little device, a little plastic thing that was stuck in the turkey when you bought it, and it popped out when the internal temperature got to the right level, right? Saying it's safe to eat this turkey. And that way, you don't have to worry about serving an uncooked turkey at Thanksgiving.
Wow.
It's another way of detecting temperature that becomes very easy for the consumer. So you take some of these different things and combine them, and that's really what our thermochromic line is. It gives people the ability to very easily, without any training, to see did something change, right? It used to be pink, now it's purple. That's how our thermoclips work. The dye in there reacts at a preset temperature, and in the thermoclip, it's 70 degrees Celsius. That temperature setting was determined based on studies of the characteristics of polypropylene insulation that's typically on a wire, and all the other factors involved in safe operating temperatures for breakers and other components. So you put this thermoclip on a conductor. If that conductor reaches 70 degrees Celsius or higher, that clip changes from purple to pink. And here's the cool piece. It locks in at that stage of pink. So it doesn't reset. Even if the temperature drops back down, it stays locked at that temperature change, that color change of pink. That way, here's the answer to your initial question. How did we get from, doing infrared inspection windows on, switch gear to a thermochromic? And the reason is, if you're really diligent and your facility is doing infrared inspections every year, which is actually should be a minimum, but the reality, that's not what even the average company does yet. But if you're doing inspections on even a monthly basis, what happens to the other 30 days out of the month? Or, the hours after no one is around anymore, and there happens to be, a massive spike that never gets detected because there's no one around. You wouldn't know. But if you have a thermoclip on a conductor that reaches above 70 degrees Celsius at 2 a.m., you could be doing thermography every day of the week during the day and never catch that there's a real issue.
Yeah.
I
get it. Get it. And it's just a clip? It's a
plastic clip that goes on the conductor, and you can put one on every, say it's a 3-phase device, you put one on each phase, you can see if one phase is overheating, the others aren't. And it just gives you an indication that something happened at some point. And then you can go in and do further investigation. And it's the cheapest, say it's around, it depends on the size of the clip, but they're $1 or less typically for these
Wow.
thermal clips. Yeah, and it can give you the same kind of information that a $2,000 sensor could provide for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Cool
But it
stuff.
also gives you an indication that you're saying, okay, something is happening here. Let me take
Yep.
the next step into
Right.
determining maybe the health of that asset, and do I need any
Exactly.
proactive action to whatever to
Right.
mitigate
Yeah.
the situation.
Yeah, you could, step 2 might be get out your IR camera and do some thermography, see if there's something showing currently. Maybe it's a loose connection. It could be that simple. It could be, an unbalanced load. It could be all different kinds of things. But at least it gives you an indication that something happened at some point. I do have a problem here. Let's look further.
Yeah. See, that makes sense.
Don't you think?
And-
Simple, easy. This is the fun thing too, is that in today's times, we tend to lean toward technology, right? We put in more and more technology because it's available, because it's cool, it's the new thing to do. And so we invest all this money into the new tech. And then we create a device like a thermal clip that's cheap, simple, very low tech, but very high in the ability to give us feedback, right? I mean, it gives us amazing amount of information, cheap and simply. It's 24-hour continuous monitoring on the budget.
These devices are not connected. These are visual devices, right? These are clips at $1 a piece or whatever the price point was. It makes sense.
Yeah. It's a visual indicator. It's the best way to describe it. You'll like this one. Okay, the engineer in me couldn't stand not saying this one. So thermochromic, right? We actually were using that word a lot on our old version of our website. We had thermochromic, and then Martin is really good at like bringing things back to the basics. He's like, you know what? Not everybody knows what thermochromic is. Like, let's use what people can
Guilty
recognize.
as charged.
Yeah, right. I didn't know before I started working here. And he said they're a temperature indicator, right? That makes a whole lot more sense to someone than thermochromic, right? But thermochromic, if you break it down, I'm not going to get too crazy, but so you go back to the Greek words that make up thermochromic. So thermos, it's temperature, right? So temperature, a chromic is color. So it's temperature, color. You put those two together, and that's really what it is. It's color indication based on temperature. And really simple and easy, so we do have these clips, we have wraps. So if the conductor is too large or it's just a flat surface, you put a sticker on it. Works the same way. It'll lock in at that highest temperature. There's some that are gradient, so you can see exactly what temperature it did reach, the maximum temperature it reached, and locks in. So all kinds of cool stuff.
Brilliant. I really like it. So now
Fun.
I'm able, if I'm Scott manufacturer and I've got some electrical components, here's my box. I can go in there. I can visually inspect it. I've got these thermochromic devices on it, and everything's good. And now something has changed. Don't know when it changed, but it changed nonetheless. Therefore, it gives me the ability to be able to sort of proactively do something that keeps it safe. I love it. Love it.
Use another key word there, proactive.
Proactive.
Right? That's the key. Before a major event happens, let's catch it.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, a lot of people are just installing devices, and these devices are connected. I love the simplicity of it. I love the sort of, change colors. That's bad. That's not good,
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
It's simple. I love it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and without a lot of training, right? It's easy to say, hey, if you're in this area, look and see if something looks different. If any of these little clips are pink, let us know. That's all an operator would have to do. One of the big things that we like to talk about at IRISS, we call it ODSR, operations driven safety and reliability. And so what operations driven safety and reliability, really the path that goes down is, let's empower the operators that are working on these lines or in these around this equipment. Let's empower them to give us some of the information we need to be better at what we do as, maintenance individuals, engineers, whatever our task may be. One of my favorite examples, I told you I take a lot of what I learned from my years of experience. When I go back to when I was a controls engineer at General Motors, when a line would go down, I'd go down to the area where the problem was. Instead of opening up a panel and trying to find, put my laptop on the PLC and figure out where things seem to be wrong, the first thing I would do when I got down there was I would ask the operator, the person running that particular area, what changed before this stopped working? Because it had been working for, let's just say, 5 years fine before that problem, and all of a sudden something fails. It's not time to reprogram, change the software. No, it's been working for a period of time. What failed? What went wrong? And the operator that had been there, they'd say, it's funny you say that. Right before it stopped working, I noticed this happening, or this sounded different, or I smelled something over here. And it allowed me then to go more quickly and directly to the problem, solve the problem faster because I got input from the operator. That's really the idea behind operations-driven safety and reliability, is let's empower the people that are really familiar and knowledgeable with the equipment to help give us information and feedback. In fact, even let's put that as part of how we maintain things safely. It's not always just periodically, it's not time-based maintenance on most things. It's actually about 17% of your assets are really ideal for time-based maintenance. All the rest of them should be more conditions-based monitoring. And something like a thermal clip could give you the condition that there's a problem. So now let's go and do something. Now let's check the connections for tightness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. I love simple solutions. I do. Take us through some of the other, and again, I'm looking at what you filled out. You've got some other devices that are within IRISS. Take us through another, what's your ultrasound inspection solution? What's that?
Yes. So here's a really cool thing, and I'll do a little bit of a teaser, but I can't go too far into it. We're launching a brand new product that is really excellent for detecting ultrasound. And for people that are around electrical assets, I think we understand that there's inherent danger, hopefully. We have to treat them with respect. Mm-hmm. And it's more difficult the longer we're around something, we become comfortable with it. And it's very easy then to forget and not respect the power that is that close to us. And so ultrasound really, it's an extension of our ears. That's really what it is. Like, you like things simply, so do I. So we talked about infrared earlier, and infrared inspection. It's just an extension of our eyes. It's that color is just not visible to the human eye, but it's there, and it can be captured by things and then interpreted for us to be able to see what's happening. That's all infrared does. Ultrasound is the same way. It's out there. That frequency is being generated. We just can't hear it with our ears. So we need a device to capture it in that frequency range that we can't hear, and interpret it, and then send it back to us in a range that we can. And ultrasound just allows us another way of inspecting the health of electrical assets.
See, what's interesting, people don't realize there is movement within electrical assets. Unlike a motor, which is just obvious, right? It's spinning and does what it needs to do, and you can take the devices and be able to look into and assess the health of that asset. It's spinning and does what it needs to do. How do you take something that's from the eyes and the ears, looks static, and then be able to assess the health using ultrasound? Are you pinging it up against some sort of AI? How are you sort of determining the health of that asset?
Yeah. So once again, you're dabbling on the edge of something I'd love to be able to jump into. We'll do it on another podcast for some of this cool AI stuff that we're working on. But the reality is, even without AI, we have the ability using software to take these samples that we're collecting from, let's just say, ultrasound, and put them into a software, and that software has comparative analysis features. So there's a history of what typical issues may look like or sound like, and we can compare against known waveforms. And so the cool thing about electricity is it's a cyclical energy. And so in the United States, 60 hertz. And so anything outside of that 60 hertz waveform, if it repeats on a regular basis, then we can make some assumptions based on, what we do see there. If it's happening on a fairly repeatable cycle, then we can make an assumption. If it's very random, we can make another assumption. And if it's above zero and it goes below zero, if there's some frequency up and down, we can make another assumption. So there are indicators, right? And it can tell us very accurately what the problem is, how it's being generated, and even where it's being generated.
Okay. But eventually, and you just keep this historian of information to continue to sort of not let that data just die, right? You're holding on to it. You're constantly pinging up against it, making sure that, because the bottom line, Mark, you want to be able to inspect that electrical asset safely and then be able to make the corrections safely. Again, you're not just going to reach into a box and then, go for it. You
only do that once.
Yeah, you only do that once.
Right.
Yeah, big time. So all of these devices that because we're going to have to revisit some of these. I mean, we're just going to have to come back and on another episode because you have some more, you have more equipment that can be talked about. But the reality is that you're providing solutions, a complete portfolio of solutions that will help me assess the health of that asset.
That's our entire goal is for you to have one place, a source of knowledge. We really want to be the place where you can go and allow us to be able to help you solve and be proactive in your approach to having a very safe, reliable, and resilient environment. Like it's the other piece of that puzzle. I won't dive into this deeply today, but we'll go back on this one too.
Yeah,
is the ability to have resiliency. After COVID, we really learned a lot of things. Number one was this ongoing maintenance program that we do because it's been a certain amount of time. COVID didn't allow us to make some of these, maintenance repairs like we did before, and yet it's amazing how long things lasted. And actually, we spent less money in certain areas, and things worked better because we weren't injecting failures. There was a lot that we learned from that. The other part that we learned from that is companies that weren't able to be resilient after a major change in the way we did business, they failed, right? They went out of business. And so resilience is a key in business today because we need to be able to sustain for the long-term future of the health of our companies. And that goes everything from, not overstocking for items that we might not need, all the way to, if we're even stepping back further than that, in the design phase. How do we design things so that they can be repaired without having to be replaced? How can we design things for safety? How can we design things for reliability? And then at the end of the day, making sure that the processes and the practices we have in place allow our employees to go home at the end of the day healthy and safe.
Yeah. That whole design component, that I've been in facilities where you have to ask the questions of why. Why is it like there was a facility I was in and they had a valve and the valve was 40 feet in the air. Why? Well,
Right.
Couldn't we do better? Because every time you want to do what you need to do on the valve, of course, you're building a scaffold and you're doing everything and creating a challenging, situation. With all this said, Mark, what are some of the roadblocks? I mean, this makes sense. Again, to your point, you make the mistake once. That's not a good thing. So anything that I can deploy in a way that keeps me safe, I'm all in. But what are the roadblocks? Or do people just sort of take it for granted, or what is it?
So it's the greatest question, because with something this amazing, and it is, you would think that we couldn't make them fast enough, and we can make them very quickly, and we pump a lot of them out the door. But the reality is, it's still in the early adopter phase. Every product goes through a life cycle, and the life cycle begins with, some people love new technology, will try anything, right? They want to be the first on the block to have the new car, whatever it may be. You come out with a new generation iPhone, there's people that buy it even before anyone really knows if it's any better or not, because they want to be the one that has the new device. And this is the same kind of thing. It's still in that early adopter phase where so many people never even have heard of it. Like we talk about thermochromics or, Safe Connect, the actual name of the device. People will say, I've never heard of that. And everyone needs to know, because it's such a great solution. But it's in that early adopter phase, which is kind of fun, because you get to see the growth begin, and you get to see, the talk. Like you and I, we're having this conversation today. We'll look back on this in 5 years ago. Remember when we were talking about thermochromics and no one even really knew what they were? And today they're everywhere.
Yeah. No, you're well, that's good to know. That's a good answer. I appreciate that. If somebody says, hey, I want to know more about this, how do they get a hold of you, Mark? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way is to go to our website, www.IRISS, that's IRISS.com. We just launched our brand new look last Friday. The website's amazing. It's way cool. We're super proud of it. And on that, there's a whole section on thermochromics. We call it, obviously, temperature indicators, so that people can click on it and have an idea before they dive too deep on, what they're clicking on. And there's a whole bunch of information in there. And then there's a contact us in there. They can actually click on that and we'll get a hold of them. But it's, I highly encourage people, go in, take a look around. Like, what we don't know is always what holds us back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? And there's so many great solutions out there today. There's very few that are exceptional. And I would have to say the unique thing, what makes us unique and distinctive, is IRISS is a provider of safety and reliability devices, but we're also the thought leaders in this industry and in this space as we go into the next generation.
I love it. Are you active out on LinkedIn?
I have a LinkedIn account, absolutely. Yep.
Well, I'm going to have your stat card out on Industrial Talk. You were great.
Scott, I enjoyed this. I think we're going to have some more conversations that we'll dive into.
Yeah, I really did. Yeah. All right, listeners, we're going to have all the contact information for Mark out on Industrial Talk, his stat card, the website. You need to connect with Mark. It's a must. All right. We're going to wrap it up on this side. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
Mark Paul. Yeah, must connect. Absolutely. The company is IRISS. You need to manage your electrical assets better. Here is a company. Here is a gentleman that has the solutions for you. It's a must. Manage all your assets. But you know what really stood out was the one that has said that we just waste billions. You're wasting money. This is a no-brainer. Make it happen. Reach out. All right, Industrial Talk is here for you. We are. We want you to succeed. We want you to amplify your voice. You have a podcast, you have technology, you have solutions, you just have a story to tell. You need to reach out to me. You need to go out to Industrial Talk and say, Scott, I want to talk to you. It's just that easy. Scott, I want to talk to you. Easy peasy. Yeah. And then we'll have that conversation. All right, be bold, be brave. Dare greatly. Hang out with Mark, and you will be changing the world. We're going to have another great conversation shortly, so stay tuned.